This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome in alongside Royden Ogletree. And Royden, we have some. I'm gonna do this now, just as we try to find, after the first few months of this show, what the show is,
right? Like
what we're doing. We're gonna do new things when we can, but
all top fives.
Yeah. We're gonna do. We did I'm sure you might even saw it. You saw the thing we did on the CW, the Sports Night during the holidays. Yeah. It was all top fives. You know what? Like, we're gone. We got to do something.
The bit works, man.
Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, we're going to do an NFL segments now. Like, we're going to kind of throw those in. It's football. We're going to throw some basketball in here in the coming weeks. We're going to grow this out a little bit. We're going to plant some seeds and see what grows.
I can't wait to hear your opinions on like the Miami Heat.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get there.
Like the February Milwaukee Bucks. Like, I want to hear.
And I've said this before. Like, I'm a guy, I enjoy the NBA. I do. But I don't, it's not my first go-to at the sports bar.
You mean college basketball? All right.
Yes, college basketball. I'm far more intrigued by, college basketball. And even though it's less important, like the regular season than, say, football, you can take a couple losses. But there's some, real intensity there. You'll never see, the best player from Kentucky just sitting out because he's like, I played 3 days ago. I mean,
my knee hurts.
Yeah, look, who does this 2 times a week now?
Yeah,
it's not. That's the thing. Like the regular season, and I know that they're trying to change that, but the regular season, in the NBA, they've got to shoot some more life into it for me, because I grew up in the era of the Bulls and the Pistons and the Lakers, that kind of.
Well, when they were killing each other on the court.
Yeah, and then the Pat Riley Knicks. So you would watch a game, you would watch Bulls Knicks, and it was you would see guys with welts on their face,
right?
And that it wasn't phasing them.
It's hardcore defense when you could run out there and punch a guy.
Yeah. I'm sure Draymond Green watches stuff from 1995 Knicks and is
born in the wrong era,
and he's like, wait a minute.
Why am I?
Hold on. I just watched Anthony Mason straight throw a guy into Alonzo Mourning, and they just called a regular foul.
The people of Detroit treat Bill Laimbeer like he's a hero.
Yeah, look, he was here. So I've met Bill Laimbeer a couple times because when he was a WNBA coach, he would come and scout Lady Bears games because they were chock full of WNBA talent, and so. I remember one time meeting him, just kind of in passing in the press room at the Farrell Center. And then I met him again when he was seated right next to me. And as a kid who grew up in early 90s and when I was little, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, and Bill Laimbeer's one of these enforcers. I started talking to him, and I said, do people ask you to throw an elbow to them?
Just give them a forearm shiver?
Just give them a straight elbow to the chest so they can say you did that? And he goes, no, but I should charge for that. Yeah. And I was like, you could. I said, you could leave this whole coaching thing behind and just go to conventions and throw elbows into people. I promise you, there are hundreds of thousands of Detroit Piston fans that he just, put on the Bad Boys convention every year and all right, here's my $100. I hope Bill Laimbeer gives me a black eye.
For $20, Vinnie Johnson will cross you over, but for $110, Bill Laimbeer will put you in a chokehold.
Yeah, exactly. Those things. They could make some serious money. I mean, look, there's big time actors.
Convention, by the way.
Yeah, there's big time actors that go do conventions like that. Yeah. Sometimes I'm surprised by looking through Instagram, Robert De Niro's at a Comic-Con? What the hell? Yeah. They play well. So anyway, but we're going to try some different things out. But first off, we're going to talk about, San Jose State's Brent Brennan on his way to Arizona, and the coaching cycle is almost complete. Now, we'll have to maybe do this again if Michigan makes an outside hire, if Jim Harbaugh takes an NFL job. And I say if, meaning when he does that. I really honestly think that once the Chargers complete their interviews, they're just going to call Jim back and be like, hey, would you like to coach Justin Herbert? And he's going, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
would you like to live in San Diego?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
which by the way,
it's not San Diego, it's LA now.
Oh yeah, that's I can't.
I know it's
move
hard.
It back.
It's hard. They should move back.
They should move back, but it would take the owner to.
It's going to take a new owner.
Yeah.
To say, all right, yeah, we're going to build a stadium of our own dollar and all that there. So, but no, so Brent Brennan goes to Arizona. I think it's a really good hire. He's done. I did not realize and here's why this is crafty a good hire. So Garrett, we talked about this all day yesterday, so you know. Okay. Arizona has a $240 million budget shortfall due to some sort of accounting error.
What?
Yes. So they have this big, gigantic budget shortfall that they're dealing with. Well, when it comes down to they also can't, because of Arizona state law, give coaches contracts longer than 5 years. So when someone like Jed Fish has a career season, you're gonna probably lose him because they're not going to give you longer than 5 years. Washington came in, gave him 7. They doubled his salary. Arizona's not in a position to be like, hey, we need to double our coach's salary. And they're like, yeah, we are going to only run hot water 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Through the athletic.
We'll be eating ramen for months.
Yeah.
So.
Look, cold showers for football, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And then nobody come up here and even turn the lights on Sundays.
Yeah.
We're going to shut the breaker off completely.
They've adopted all of the ERCOT stipulations.
Exactly. That's what they have. So, no, but you have that budget shortfall. Well, San Jose State has maybe the most shoestring athletic budget in all of FBS. Coaches set up their own, position coaches set up their own drills. There's not 7, right now, even Arizona, Brent Brennan will be able to be like, hey, 3 GAs, go set up this drill while the assistant coach, talks to the guys and does this. At San Jose State, they literally have to set up their own drills. And, I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you're, at the FBS level, even San Diego State, who's in the same conference as San Jose State, they have GAs that do that. San Jose State has, 2 GAs because their budget is just smaller. It's what they do. And for him to go to 3 bowl games in 4 years at San Jose State on one of the most shoestring budgets athletically and especially football-wise in America means I think this guy can coach a bit.
Yeah, it's also a good scheme fit, too. I don't know how much San Jose State football our audience has watched over the past few years, but they're fun to watch. Them and Fresno State and to a point San Diego State. It's really fun and entertaining football.
Yeah.
But budget restrictions aside, I don't know how that's going to fare the first year in Arizona.
Well, I mean, and he's going to go and he's stepping into the Big 12, and it's a new league. But he did potentially get some good news today in that it appears that Noah Fafita and that
is the name.
Tatoria McMillan, his wide receiver who's amazing, are going to stay at Arizona. That's big news.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people just thought that, Jed Fish is having his press conference right now at Washington. And then after he gets done with that, Noah Fafita and McMillan are just going to get on a plane together and go let's move to Seattle.
Yeah. I love grunge.
We're going to be like Frasier season 1. Let's go. But that's not that's not going to happen now. But it does bring up, and I thought about this.
Didn't their quarterback transfer or no?
Yeah, well.
Delora entered the portal.
Yeah, Jane Delora is at Texas State now.
Right.
Now, for Washington, there's been an interesting development with Will Rogers in that he put his name in the portal. I think he took a visit somewhere. But he's at class apparently today, and so he might stay with Jed Fish, which would be a nice way for Jed Fish to start, knowing he at least has that locked up. Because all the rest of
he was transferring.
He's in the portal, but he's not gone yet. So you can always pull your name out of the portal. It happens. I don't want to say all the time, but it happens. Yeah. It happens enough. You know, I think every team who has like guys in the portal will have one or two that like, yeah, I'm in the portal too, and they're like, I'm gonna go get money somewhere, and then they're like,
no money.
Oh, I'm making as much as I can right here, so I'll just stay.
Turns out the market for me was highly overestimated.
Yes. Part of it is you get people in your ear, right?
Yeah.
You know, like, well, I mean, you're the second linebacker at Alabama, but you'd be the first at Louisville, and they'll pay you way more money. And then you call up Louisville, and they're like, yeah, no, that's about what you're worth.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean,
we can give you meal tickets to Papa John's.
We'd love to have you, but like, you know, if this is about you getting a raise, it's not going to happen. And you're like,
right.
Well, I don't think I want to move. You know, like moving's a pain, even when you're in college. You know, like even when you have no things,
right?
It's still a pain. So, but Ari Wasserman in The Athletic wrote about this, and I thought about this, and he even called it the Lincoln Caleb rule, in that from that time that Lincoln Riley took the USC job, and then took a couple players, but most notably the best quarterback in the country, just with him to USC. I thought, like, you know, I know that like you don't want to restrict athletes too much, but like there has to be something to keep this from getting too shady, right?
Right.
Where, you know, I kind of agree with Ari that like, okay, you can go anywhere except the place that head coach went. So, how do you feel about that, Garrett?
I disagree with that because I feel like nowadays, while most players traditionally should commit to a school or a program, that's not the case, right? You're committing to a coach. And you bring it up all the time, right? Like, if you're going to do that, you better make sure you commit to the head coach, not your position coach, yada, yada, yada. But if your head coach, the person you committed for, is leaving, I have no problem with you following them elsewhere. Now, if you're going to go in, like say you're a quarterback, say Fafita was going to go with him and you have Will Rogers there established as the guy. Now, if you're going to cause roster conflict, I might be a little apprehensive with that. But I don't mind a player following his coach if that's who he wants to be with and develop throughout his career. That doesn't bother me.
Yeah, and it goes even further down too with like Lincoln Riley also took a lot of commits with him to USC too. Yeah, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he did. So I get like, okay, maybe you guys are convincing me that like maybe it's not that big of a deal.
It's different.
It's just like had Arizona lost their head coach, quarterback, best wide receiver, and like 5 of the players, they're like, man, does this seem even? Because look, if you're going to go to the NFL model, look, if Mike Vrabel takes the Cowboys job,
right,
he can't just the guys who are under contract. I mean, like, he might be able to get Derrick Henry to go there with him because he's a free agent.
Right.
But he can't just go, you know what I'd like? I'd like these two guys. Like, I'd like Jeffrey Simmons.
Hopkins,
I want Jeffrey Simmons to come with me because the Cowboys really need a guy like that. So, Jeffrey, transfer to the Cowboys. You know? Right. Like, that's where, you know.
I don't know. I think because it's so wide open, we've waxed poetic about why some limitations need to be put on it. I don't know what they are, completely honest with you, because it's like you don't want to restrict. Forever, it was we are restricting these players from doing what is in their best interest.
Yeah.
Or for their family or their future prospects, what have you. There's been a number of arguments about why the wait a year transfer rule thing doesn't make a lot of sense. I tend to agree with that. Up to a point where now, though, we have wholesale just shift every single year.
Yeah.
And there's no continuity anymore, and these programs are having to rebuild from scratch, it seems like, every year. Even these major programs are, are having to bring in dudes that may not fit right away, instead of growing players and growing a team. And it leads to, in some parts of the country, a lesser product. Now, some parts we have said, we always talk about where it has worked.
Yeah.
But like Washington is the prime example of that.
It worked great.
It worked awesome.
Now they're getting the other side of that when, they're already going to have 8 guys in the draft, but now it's almost all 22 starters are gone.
Is it bad radio to be like, I don't have the answer? Because
it's fine. Like, it's fine to, like, I'm fine speculating on this and, like, finding what the thing is, but it does just kind of suck that, like, you can not only lose your head coach and your offensive coordinator and your defensive coordinator and, like, have to start over on that side, but then, like, oh, not only that, but, like, the quarterback that he was hoping to have is probably also going to leave too.
Right.
You know.
Is there a way that, and this is probably illegal and would probably go together with the forming of unions and everything, but if you are an NIL collective, could you put something like an incentive in?
They're already backing out of half of
That's what I'm saying. Like, say if you're an Arizona collective guy, you give Fafita, when he signs his deal, you have 1 year where you completely have to stay with this program. Like, could you do
Well, I think a lot of that has to, like, we had one of the NIL lawyer on, and he said, look, a lot of these things, like Dylan Gabriel has some, we have to find a way to replace some of Dylan Gabriel has some appearances that he's not going to be able to, like, fulfill because now he's up in Eugene, Oregon, and he's gone. Look, that's his choice, but he knew that, but that was in the contract that we agreed to with this business and all these other things. So now we have to find somebody else for that business. Dylan Gabriel's not going to get that money, and now I have to go find for Dylan Gabriel money to replace the money that he decided to forego, but he's still going to want it because it's my job to find him these things. And this is one of the NIL agents that talked to us, and those kind of exist, but like you can maybe incentivize them to be like, listen, if you do not enter the transfer portal, you're going to guaranteed 15% raise in 1 year, 25% the next year.
Yeah, it'd be interesting 35% if they start
the next
writing
year.
In sliding scales into these contracts.
If you stay here for all 4 years or whatever, like you're going to get this much no matter what. Provided you're still on the team. So,
well, your question specifically was like, should they be allowed to follow their coach directly to these places? I tend to lean yes. I tend to lean on the side that, hey, I wanted to just come play for this coach. That's why I wanted to play here. I wanted to play for Lincoln Riley because he's the kingmaker or whatever for quarterbacks. It gets a little, it starts to get a little dicey when you start looking at lesser head coaches. Like, I'm going from, I can't even think of an example because I don't want to besmirch a school, but like a lower school. Let's take UTSA for example, or what have you. UTSA, because he's been linked to try and take all these jobs. He was linked to the A&M job. A lot of people at Baylor wanted him to be up there. You've had success at those levels, and then so you start to kind of get in the weeds when we aren't telling these student athletes, like, is it always greener on the other side? And there's been articles written about, like, 50% of people that enter the transfer portal don't even find a new home, and so on and so forth. I think just more needs to be made about alerting these people, and they're college kids, so you may never even get through.
Yeah,
like you could have told me anything in the world when I was 20 years old. I probably wouldn't have listened to you, but I think there just needs to be more made about, like, look, it may not always be. And it needs to be on these coaches too. It's like, hey, if you come here, you may not start either.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like I think that's what happened with Jordan Mailata when he went to Georgia. I think that Georgia was probably like, I don't see Kirby Smart being like, oh yeah, you're totally going to beat out Carson Beck.
That move never made any sense.
But he probably said like, look, you'll have a chance to compete, and like that kind of thing. Like every job's always open, every practice, all that kind of bull crap,
Yeah.
those things. And sometimes that's true and sometimes it's not.
Except for the 5-star that we paid $1 million to get, he probably was going to have the job.
But, that one, and then he switched because, I'm sure he went back and talked to his family and they're like, yeah, every job's open, every practice, shut up. Yeah. Like, listen, kid, I know that you probably had fun there, but let's if you want to start or have a chance to start, you need to go in a place that you're going to have a legit competition in spring and not like, oh, hey, let's see what this guy can do for maybe when Carson Beck goes and gets drafted in the first round next year.
Right.
They'll hit the ground running. And like, not only that, like you're going to a place that you'll have 3 5-stars behind you. Like they're like Georgia's like, they'll take a 3-star quarterback if it's the they've got one scholarship available. They're like, well, we might as well take this kid. He was Mr. Georgia football in Rome, Georgia. Like, shoot, it could be the next Stetson Bennett. Come on board. But yeah, that's not how that works there.
I don't know. I think it just really would take a lot of honesty and a lot of self-reflection from a lot of these guys to really think about what is actually best for them. And I think we do need to get back to a thing in college football where, in pro football for that matter, because we have so many like bad quarterbacks, like sitting can be good.
Yeah.
Sitting can be good. And I don't know how you communicate that.
Well, part of the problem is that money accelerates things, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if I'm an NFL owner and I draft, and I thought this might be fixed a little bit when they came up with the rookie wage scale in the NFL to where, look, Sam Bradford got $50 million to go to the Rams
and then get injured,
to write his name on paper. Like, that's what he did. And look, that was the market bared right then. I'm not mad at Sam Bradford. But if you're an NFL owner, like, you're like, man, I've got it. Like, I just paid this kid $50 million. He's not sitting very long if he's sitting at all. I got to get my money's worth out of this guy, and he better start playing as opposed to sitting there with a clipboard and a headset.
Yeah.
And I think that's in college football now, too. Like, like sitting can be – I give a lot of credit to Dante Moore for just being like, you know what? My football career could get derailed if I don't sit somewhere and learn. And so I'm going to go to Oregon and sit behind Dylan Gabriel for a year, and then I'm going to try and take the world by storm.
Right.
So there's a lot of humility in that says, like, yeah, I know that I'm good, but, like, am I NFL good? Like,
I mean, isn't that essentially what Arch Manning's doing?
Yes. Arch, like,
no, yeah.
and Arch... And it's kind of strange that Arch is doing that, given that, well, Peyton wasn't the guaranteed starter either when he went to Tennessee. I don't know if most people may not know this, but the starting quarterback when Peyton's freshman year at Tennessee was Todd Helton.
Oh, yeah.
So
that is right, yeah.
Yes. And then Peyton, passed Todd Helton. Todd Helton's like, I don't care. I'm the best first baseman in America.
Baseball's more fun.
Yeah, like I'm going to go play baseball. No skin off my back. Oh, shucks, I lost that. And then Eli started really early at Ole Miss too. But Arch Manning kind of knows. And the other thing that's happened is that, like we've talked about, that's Arch Manning. He was not playing at the highest level of high school football. No. So he was going to need this time to be like, oh, crap. These guys around me are all a lot bigger and faster, and so it's good for him to get that adjustment. 2 years of sitting and waiting and like building that talent and growing into getting on that meal plan and, doing the things are good. Yes. So those things are good, but
it is good. The only problem is that now these like Arch Manning's getting paid $1 million. He's getting paid more money than like Quinn Ewers and getting more press than like Quinn Ewers. And it's just like, that can't be good, for the site. Obviously it hadn't affected them so far, but
I think
every Texas fan, anytime he throws an interception next year is going to be like, oh my God, where's Arch Manning?
Yeah. Well, and look, that's the case.
That's been in time memoriam, but
that's the case with all. The backup quarterback's always the most popular guy, especially when his last name is Manning. Right? Like it's just that's going to be because what Texas fans and here's what I'm surprised they don't see: none of the Mannings ever won a national championship.
Very true.
None of them ever did. Eli didn't. Peyton did. Peyton. The Florida Gators owned Peyton Manning. It's, I'm sure, the most shameful thing that's ever happened to him in his life. But the Florida Gators owned him, right?
There's some stuff on his Wikipedia page.
Even that, no,
right?
No, but yeah, the Florida Gators owned Peyton Manning. He couldn't get past the Gators; they were better than Tennessee. Then he leaves. T. Martin's the quarterback, and Chris Winkie breaks his neck, and they win. I say he breaks his neck. He had a neck injury against Wake Forest. And they beat Florida State in 98 and won the title. So, that like Peyton never won. Eli never won. God, Archie never won. Like that was, and so, but people see like this is the next man. This is the Manning that will fulfill the college prophecy.
The one ring, yeah.
Yeah. No, and so we'll see. And I think it's good that he's sitting. And I think but not everybody also has the luxury of doing that like Arch Manning does.
No.
So he may be a bad example, but there have been plenty of guys who just sat and waited their turn.
What about Garrett Nussmeier would probably be your best example.
Yes.
He has sat at LSU. He wanted to commit to LSU. He committed to the school. He sat through multiple guys coming in, winning the Heisman, and now he'll have his opportunity this year. But you got so many people who aren't going to be patient enough to do that, and only time's going to tell. I'm apprehensive with that because if you're a quarterback like Nussmeier who has been sitting this long and you've been getting the reps in practice, you haven't been getting the first team reps. So how far from a developmental standpoint are you set back by waiting? That's the kind of double-edged sword on it.
No, it is. It's a really tricky issue. It's
well,
a
the
really,
days
really
of Bryce
tricky
Petty and Seth
Russell
are far gone.
Yeah, no. Bryce wasn't going to wait that long.
No.
But you do have to, look, Malachi Nelson is going to Boise State. I'm sure he'll be really good at Boise State, but, sometimes you throw your line out in the water, and USC to Boise State, as far as prestige goes, is a significant drop-off.
Let me ask you this. Is there anything that these schools besides the NIL can do, or obviously because the NCAA is going to die, we're lamenting it in real time, but is there anything that these schools, conferences, or otherwise can do besides NIL to, can they write it into a stipulation that, when you commit to that feels like that's going to backfire, that now I'm talking about it, but write into the stipulation, your commitment is for 2 years.
I do think
in NCAA basketball, you have to stay a year if you're going to,
I do think that when the new structure comes down, that might be part of it. In that, there can be, Cole Kubelik was on the show and proposed it yes, you can agree to this or you cannot, but you're not going to have guarantees. You can be a guy who says, yes, I'm going to sign this 1 year, I'll just sign 4 1-year deals, or you can sign a 2 year, whatever you can do. And then the transfer portal thing is at least somewhat contained. There's a lot of different ways they can do it. And I do think, though, because if they're going
to be more like contracts, you think?
Yeah, because, it's going to have to be, because if you're going to be sharing in revenue, you can't, especially when there's going to be clearly also that graduated revenue scale that if everybody's sharing in this revenue, but the teams that win are going to get more, they're going to want to keep people in place for longer. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. There's going to be something that balances it out. But until there's, unionization or some sort of employment contract, there's no way to do that right now because, it's this weird entity that doesn't really make sense.
There is no governing body, I think it'll be interesting. Go ahead.
So college athletics was something that was invented, and when it was invented, it was not designed to really make money, right? It was designed.
No, it was extracurricular. It was basically if you were playing fraternity sports intramural sports.
It was the side hustle of universities.
Yeah.
Any profit they sold on concessions and T-shirts and things like that was just their side hustle. It was their Etsy for people from this area. That's what they were doing. They were that's how it was. And granted, again, power brokers came up a lot quicker than people maybe even realized then. But at the end of it, there wasn't nobody was making big radio contracts. Mm-hmm. Occasionally, if your game was on the radio, that was a big deal. Or you had your local radio guy, and then there were 3 or 4 channels on television, and a couple of them would have games. There'd be 2 to 4 games.
Notre Dame.
Yeah, so all those things were different. And then when every game can be on TV, and these multimedia contracts, and then this goes from an industry that was not for profit to one that is very much for profit. Mm-hmm.
Not according to their tax bracket, but yes.
No, but yes, it's one of those things that so now, we're in this phase of, a lot of people are well, this is not how it was when I was coming up in 1974. You're yeah, there's a lot of things that are different in 1974. Try smoking in a restaurant right now. Just things are different, okay? Let's address how they are, and not how they were.
What do you mean I can't smoke in this airplane?
Yeah, so.
I don't know. It'll be interesting
to see. You kids in your wussy seat belts.
Airbags, it just used to be a metal dash.
Yeah, those kind of things. We have to move on, right? I think that's when it'll change. All right, in the next segment, Alabama's roster is open like Costco, really, right now. Mm-hmm. Mike Norvell's shopping in bulk. He's gotten 5 Alabama guys already, and that's not even to talk about everybody who's going to get some of these recruits that have already been committed for the next couple classes. And I don't know, like even as good as Kirby Smart is at recruiting, if we will ever see a coach that had a strong hold on talent like Nick Saban. Because people were going to Alabama, even maybe to the detriment of their playing time early on, because Nick Saban said, I want you to come here. And so...
In like 8th grade, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, like there were guys like if Nick Saban said you're going to come here, that's like if Dave Chappelle says, do you want to open for me?
Right.
Or like, Elton John's like, hey, come out and do 10 songs before I come on. Like, yes, I will do that.
Think about that.
Absolutely. You cannot match that. So, are we going to see a completely new era when it comes to talent distribution just because of one guy leaving? I think we are. This is 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Thanks for joining us. Once again, I'm Paul Catalina alongside Royden Ogletree, and Nick Saban retired last week.
What?
It was a bombshell.
When did it?
It was a bombshell. It shook up a lot of things, but
I joke. I did tell my wife that like 2 days after it happened, and she was like, "What?" Like she was stunned. She had no idea.
Yeah.
And it actually like shook her a little bit that she like missed something that big in the world. It's like a big deal.
I text my wife, and she's like, I text her all in caps, like, Nick Saban's retiring. Oh my God. And she's like, why are you so excited? I'm like, I mean, it's pretty huge.
We
and
killed
like,
God.
Like Jack climbed up the beanstalk and killed the giant. And now he's plummeting to earth. And we can just go back up the beanstalk and take all the stuff. Yeah. Like, how is this not a big deal? This would if you just told every upstart fast food restaurant that their McDonald's was closing, they'd be like, seriously?
Yeah.
There's a power vacuum now? Can we get Burger King out too?
I'm about to get KFC in every vacant building.
Yeah, whatever it is. So, but Nick Saban was so unique in that, and there are coaches that are really good and are going to be able to hoard talent, like better than most. Kirby Smart will. I don't really know if there's anybody else who can right now because it's so different.
You can make an argument.
Jim Harbaugh was.
Lane Kiffin's trying,
but his door revolves. Yeah. All right. And Kirby
Dan Lanning is going to be West Coast.
Yeah. Maybe. Oh, yeah. But again, the door, because of the transfer portal and all these things, is more revolving. And even though it was revolving at Alabama, to me, in the transfer portal era, never lost someone that was totally impossible to replace, which, and we'll see if that happens with Georgia as well, because I don't think that they will. But, I mean, LSU has, right?
Yeah.
Almost every team in the country, at least for that 1 year, has lost somebody to a different program that they found impossible to replace. Now, Alabama was, with their 2 total losses this year, wonky to a point of they couldn't just dominate through injuries. They had to win in a lot of different ways. That was the biggest difference between, pre-Portal Saban and post-Portal Saban is in the post-Portal Saban era, he was not able to just, all right, well, the left guard and the right tackle are both hurt, and we got 2 wide receivers down, and we're out a linebacker. Well, we probably won't play as well, but all these guys that are going to start next year are just going to play these 4 games. We're not going to be without them.
The sophomore and junior depth died.
Exactly. So instead of winning by 35, they won by 26. That was it. But now, like you saw this year where, instead of winning by 35, they won by 4. It was like, all right, we're still good enough to beat you, but we're not necessarily good enough to blow you straight out. And I think that Georgia was a little bit the same way this year for the first part of it, and then they adjusted and then got through. But Nick Saban was able to get people just because he was Nick Saban, and there's never going to be another one. So when it comes to, I think we're going to see maybe, especially with the 12-team playoff and everything going on, you're going to see some nice runs from other programs that would have gotten guys if it was just not for Nick Saban. Right? If it was not Nick Saban asking me, I would have probably gone here. But I'm not going to miss the chance to play for the greatest coach ever.
Right. And he was getting guys that, it harkened back to like the 70s and 80s when these coaches, like Texas would rip guys from Baylor and A&M just because they didn't want them on Baylor and A&M. You know what I mean? They'd just go and sit. And we were talking about sitting in the last segment, but it was just this unbelievable thing where he had the guys like, why would you go there? You're not even going to play yet. And then they'd come out, they'd have 2 awesome seasons as a junior and a senior. Oh, you're the first round, you're the first pick. He couldn't do that anymore. It was unbelievable to see how many guys he just got. How many 4 and 5-star guys he just got as almost add-on pieces, as depth. Kirby Smart's doing it a little bit because we saw a few years ago when Baylor played them and half their team set out in the Sugar Bowl and they still dominated us with 5-star sophomores or whatever that hadn't played all year.
Yeah.
He's doing that a little bit, but it is...
He's got 5 more national titles to win before he gets that kind of street cred, though.
He didn't have to call to set up a meeting.
Yeah,
that kind of power.
Yes.
It's I'm in Dothan. I want to see your best player. You know what I mean?
No,
it just could show up.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like Michael Scott, I started a sentence and I don't know where it's going to lead me. But I think that far gone are the days of having those guys that would sit for 2 or 3 years and then come in and be a first round pick. I don't want to say that we won't ever see it again because we didn't ever think that we'd see another Bear Bryant until there was another Bear Bryant. Yeah.
It's just going to be a lot harder.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm more interested to see is sort of the parity in that we saw when Alabama was down from when was the last time they were from the 80s when they won that national championship? 92 when they won that national championship until 2007, where you had a little more parity. Obviously, it was dominated by the Florida schools, but
and Nebraska.
So I'm interested to see who fills that power vacuum. Probably Georgia.
Well, look, I'm going to tell you, it's great news for Florida, LSU, Miami, Florida State, those schools, because Nick Saban, now Miami was a little bit before 2007. Florida was right, once Tebow left, that's when they started to dip, because he was the magnet of that. You've got these guys that Urban Meyer. Once Urban Meyer and Tebow left, that's when that happened. But because Nick Saban's the one who ended the Florida run, right?
Yeah.
They beat him in the SEC title game, and then that was when it was on for Alabama for the Saban era. And so when that happened, it's not surprising to see 2 bad stretches of Florida State history, a very long stretch of bad Florida, and an even longer one of Miami, in that, where do you think he was going?
He stole all their recruits.
Yeah, so because Nick Saban, like the ones that they were even essentially for the 90s, they were kind of all dividing them up evenly, and then based on 2 or 3 guys that swung a certain way, you were the best team of the group, right?
Yeah.
But, Bowden and Spurrier and, it's different Miami coaches, but like whoever the Miami coach was essentially just like, okay, here's our 25, you're 25, you're 25. We really fought hard for these couple. These are the ones that swung. I think Bobby was more successful than the other 2 in the longer term because his staff didn't change that much. Like he had this, for the most part, the same staff the whole time. And then like when actually it started to Urban Meyer came in, was way younger and like knew how to work a cell phone. And then that kind of changed for Bobby, and that's when Jimbo came in. But but where did he go? Like now Nick Saban went everywhere, but right at the beginning, like getting those dudes that were the difference makers that were divided evenly up amongst 3 schools, or maybe even 4 or 5, then all of a sudden he just went
deep in Dade County
and took them all. So back when there were let's just say the 12 best players in Miami, 4, 4, and 4. He was getting 9 of them. So then it's like the other 3 get to fight over 1 apiece on average, and they may or may not get them. So if they do it right, the Florida schools should really benefit from this more than anything else because they're local. But we'll see. Who knows, what's going to happen. Now, Kirby Smart's already kind of doing this, but now that, you have Nick Saban gone and the Pope is gone. Yeah. That's it. The Pope of college football is gone. So that is going to be interesting to see how those
White
programs
smoke is coming out of the Waffle Houses.
Yeah, those programs react to it and how those ones that, LSU won national titles without Nick Saban.
Right, yeah.
But they were probably also hurt by the fact that he was really good at, and this is where LSU was really hurt by Nick Saban. The one guy that would have flipped it in most years was going there instead of LSU, and you'd watch those games and be like, those 3 guys that were down to us and them, if they had just gone this way, we probably win this game.
You get a damn quarterback.
Yeah, yes, Joe Burrow, St. Joseph.
Blessed be his name.
Of Ohio came down and helped them out. That's how it was. But I'm curious to see how that, not having that gigantic Death Star of a situation that they had in Alabama, now that the Rebel Alliance has a shot, what's going to happen and how that talent gets redistributed and who is the best at roping it all in.
Right. I mean, right now, your coach. But,
he's honestly, the reason I use the Costco thing is, he has gone to the Alabama Costco and so far taken 5 guys out of the portal. Now, how that works out remains to be seen. He's pretty good at that. So
he can identify portal players.
But none of them have contributed all that much to Alabama, but they're younger players. So clearly they went there, and they'd probably be staying if Nick Saban was there and playing this year. But they've gone there, and they've walked up, and they've said, yes, I will take a large 40-gallon tub of mayonnaise. Let's go. And that's what they're doing. So, when you see one school alone getting 5 guys, Georgia's going to get a couple guys. Those, there's a ripple effect here that is unlike any roster maybe ever in this short history of the transfer portal. No one's roster is going to get rated and cycled like Alabama's will this year.
And they were already rating it before Saban left.
Anytime somebody said, hey, I don't think I'm going to play here, they're like, come here, because Saban thought you're good, I think you're good.
Exactly. Half of them went to TCU. But I think, woe is, everybody's going to say, woe is me for the Alabama fans and alumni out there. But I just think I'm interested to see what happens with that program, because I was doing the math the other day, and the guy after Saban went 4 seasons, won 3 bowl games, had a winning record of like 35, 13, and 1. And they said, go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We cannot deal with you anymore. I forget what his name was. I have it in my Twitter feed. But like he had a winning record, 35, 13, and 1, which would you would kill for that at
many schools. Many schools.
Most schools.
Yeah.
My alma mater included. Yeah. And won 3 bowl games, and they're just like not good enough. The coach after Bear Bryant, not good enough. And it took 2 more coaches before they got to
Stallings?
Gene Stallings. Yeah, before they got to him to win the national championship. And even he didn't last.
Well, he retired after the national championship.
Yeah, like
but then
from there, it was like doldrum. Everybody forgets how bad Alabama was until Nick Saban got back there.
Yeah.
Or got there in general.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see when you don't have that power, when the U.S. leaves the state that they have been having war in for years. What kind of power vacuum does that leave in the SEC?
That's a good comparison. Now look, he built, in my opinion, 2 dynasties, although one of them he was not a part of for most of it. Because LSU before Saban got there was a revolving door of why is this not good?
Yeah.
I mean, the guys like Curly Hallman and they could never hire the right coach. They had this glory from the 60s and 70s, but then they would be good. They would have good teams in the 80s, but they were never competing for anything really like that was, they had a couple, but then Nick Saban came there and then made LSU the place. Then he went to the Dolphins, and then LSU was able to take what they learned from Nick Saban and then keep that vein running through this whole time through now several coaches. So he kind of built LSU into, he taught them how to run a football program. He went to the Dolphins. They learned nothing from Nick Saban. They were never a match
from the Dolphins anyway.
I actually think he did.
Did not go to college to pro football anymore.
Yeah, I think he did. I think with the right organization, we would have never seen Nick Saban back in college. But there's not that many right organizations.
Yeah.
Right? So there's not that many. But the Dolphins never been run well. They're just not.
We were talking about it.
A couple of owners.
We don't
not
include the Dolphins into the doldrums of shameful, shame, and we don't include them into really beaten down fan bases. They're up there kind of with the Browns. They've had more success than that. Obviously, they've won a Super Bowl, but they haven't won a playoff game since the 90s, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been bad for Dolphins fans.
Yeah.
Tua has been their best quarterback, or we're getting an NFL segment. Tua has been their best quarterback since Dan Marino, and they're I don't even know if we want to keep him anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I just think that. But the funny thing is that Nick Saban, he wins at LSU, but Nick Saban wasn't Nick Saban until he was Nick Saban. You know what I mean? I mean, if you kind of look at his coaching record before he gets to LSU, he has success at Michigan State. And then, comes out of nowhere to win the championship at LSU.
Michigan State was the, he's
got it a little bit.
I think they knew he had it. I have a friend who played for him and was yeah, this guy's something. Just compared to other coaches that just knew it differently.
So we just don't think that there's going to be a coach that we're just not seeing.
No.
But
I do
all of a sudden turn into an all-time great.
Yeah. And I do believe this about a lot of coaches and players when it comes to professional sports. If you're not matched with the right situation at the right time,
that's fair.
It's not going to work for you. And because everybody's got such short memories on things, or long memories when it comes to Nick Saban, I guess it's been a long time. People think he was a bad NFL coach. Well, it clearly didn't suit him either. He wanted to go back to college. And look, Joe, you do make a good point. As college became more pro, he became less comfortable with it. But he was always adaptable. But I do think that when you have a situation where you don't have good leadership above you, you don't have those things. And it's the same way in college, but like if you have good leadership above you, if you have the people running the organization, the people that have the money of the organization, and we're not going to have time to do our NFL segment. We'll just keep on this for a little bit. But if you have the right people in place, then all of a sudden you can be successful and your talents can be fully realized. But if you don't, then you're kind of out of that and you go back to where you know that you're going to be successful, because Nick Saban at any point in Alabama could have had another NFL job. Nobody thought of him as some kind of like NFL washout, like Lou Holtz or something, that it just didn't have the right mindset for it. He just never went back there. He could have won 2 or 3 of these national titles at Alabama and then said, you know what? This organization's really smart. I'm going to go work for the Rams or whatever, you know. Like, they know what they're doing. I'm going to go work there. As opposed to the Dolphins, who clearly don't, you know. Like, the Lions didn't know what they're doing forever. And now it looks like, hey, they might have stumbled across something, you know. But they're not, like, of the 32 teams in the NFL, only like 5 are consistently run well. You know, like,
people forget how bad the Patriots were before Belichick got there.
Yeah. And like you had like Robert Kraft learned a lot from Belichick. We'll see how he applies that knowledge in the future with Gerard Mayo, but like that's how it is. Just like LSU clearly learned from Nick Saban and was able to not fall completely off the tracks after he left. That's one of the most impressive things, because LSU has not only been through head coaches, they've been through like 5 athletic directors too.
A bunch,
like they've been able to at least know, like when somebody comes in, like, okay, Saban did this. We know at least we've got the baseline for doing this. And then every coach who's been there, you know, Saban, Les Miles, Edo, has won a national title. Now we'll see if Brian Kelly can keep that going. Garrett has no faith in that, but
I do not like that man.
Yeah, so
is he just too corny?
Yeah.
He's a fraud, man. Everything about it's fraudulent. Even going back to Notre Dame, can't win the big games. Look at this year. It's just a disaster.
Yeah. So
we can stay on that all day. But the
but no, I think like
is it Horsher? How do you who's the coach now at Alabama? DeBoer. Why am I thinking? I don't know.
Kalen
DeBoer. Like, what does he have to do to be even relatively considered a success at Alabama? And to that effect, what can he even do in the intermediate to like plug the holes in the ship? Because it seems like it's like red alert going on that campus right now.
Yeah.
So I didn't.
I think DeBoer. I mean, he's just going to have to do it his way and then win, and then not worry about. But Nick did it this way. Nick did it this way. Nick did it this way. Like, he's just going to have to win. Like, this, the only thing he can do is do it his way and win. And he's going to have to deal with the fact that he's going to be at the place where their expectations are so unreasonable. And
it's going to be nasty next year when they go like 7-5.
Yeah. But like Saban's the greatest, and there's only a few other coaches that are like in the ballpark of discussing about how they were able to win as consistently as they were for as long, and they didn't do it as well as he did with the restrictions he did. Like, to me, like, you're talking about Saban and Bryant and Bowden and Osborne and, you know, like Newt friggin' Rockne. I mean, like, there's just not, like, you're not talking about a lot of guys.
He only really translates to like Bear Bryant and
Woody Hayes, you know.
Well, I was thinking college basketball. I was thinking
John Wooden.
John Wooden, right?
Yeah, you know. So like, you know, like, okay, I'll just, because it's what I know. Like, Bobby Bowden would probably be considered the greatest college football coach ever in the modern era if Nick Saban didn't exist, because of not only did he only won 2 national titles. So it's probably not like, it would probably be Bryant and then Bowden. But Bowden in the modern era was probably the best because of, in an era where there were only 2 teams that went the national championship game, he was in the top 5 15 years or 14 years in a row. Like, in that era when it was voted on.
Right.
You know, like, he was, like, that's how dominant he was.
Always giving yourself a chance.
And he wasn't even close to as dominant as Nick Saban was.
Right.
Like, Nick Saban took, okay, Bobby Bowden was this good. Nick Saban took Bobby Bowden's this good, Bear Bryant was this good. He is so much better and figured things out more than both of those 2 football coaching geniuses.
Yeah.
That's how good he was.
I think he has more national championship games or appearances than he did double-digit losses at Alabama.
Yeah, I think it's like 44 to 20 for something like that.
Yeah. That's unbelievable. I think if we're semantic, but and it is interesting because of how close their relationship is. Like the only real sort of comparison is Belichick.
Yeah.
In an era where people don't win multiple Super Bowls, let it be in a row.
Yeah.
But to be in that many, period. He has more Super Bowl appearances, and in fact, rings, if you want to count the Giants rings or whatever, than every franchise.
Yeah.
So he's really only comparison to his his only peer is his really good friend Bill Belichick, which those conversations have to be wild. But it is interesting that we're now in a point where there's just the changing of the guard, and I don't know if we as a one sports talk community or even the community at large online knows how to react quite yet about how do we talk about these guys? How do we even contextualize what they did?
Yeah.
And then, but also, hell yeah, we just got another Alabama recruit. So, I don't know.
It is wild because I do think that there's always a correction in the market. There's a correction in things. And right now, for Nick Saban, Nick Saban leaving is we've already seen the ripple effect through now. Look, San Jose State probably never thought in their life that they would be affected because the Alabama coach retired.
Right.
But here's where we are.
Yeah, it's the small domino leading up to the huge domino.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, Nick Saban retires, and that means they're going to take the coach from Washington to go there.
Yeah.
And then Washington's going to take the coach from Arizona. Arizona's going to take this coach from San Jose State. And then there's going to be a smaller school than San Jose State potentially that's we have to hire a new coach because the greatest football coach of all time retired.
Yeah, South Dakota State's really shaking in their boots right now.
Yeah, and they might have good coach.
I just wanted to talk about this because it's really funny. I forget what the name of the agent is, but the agent I think he was the agent of Dan Lanning.
Oh, Jimmy Sexton.
So he's the agent of all these guys that got all of them raises and then sent DeBoer to Alabama.
Yes.
That's unreal.
It's great. Here's the thing about Jimmy Sexton. He's now peaked.
Yeah.
Because he'll never have another Nick Saban to make all this money off of again.
Right.
Because it's not
I would retire.
Yeah, I mean.
He got everyone raises and then got his other client back into the Alabama job.
He got Jimbo Fisher 2 raises at A&M for nothing. He got, I don't even know. Here's what we don't know. Did Mike Norvell ever talk on the phone with Greg Byrne, the athletic director at Alabama? Did Dan Lanning ever talk on the phone with Greg Byrne? Did that ever actually happen? Or did Jimmy Sexton just said, okay, who's on your short list? These are all my guys.
Yeah.
And
I have this Rolodex. Would you like to look at it?
Look, Seattle people, Washington people will always believe this because of Jimmy Sexton. A month and a half ago, Kalen DeBoer got offered a contract at Washington. And it sat on his desk, and he changed agents. And Jimmy Sexton told him, hey, let's just wait and see. That's a smart agent move. They're not going to fire you.
Right.
You're fine. We'll work on this. And then who's the only other person other than Miss Terry on earth who would have known that Nick Saban was thinking about retiring? His agent, Jimmy Sexton.
Real estate agents in Austin.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be the ultimate just dick move of the Saban family to just finally move.
Lake Travis is nice this time of year.
To just finally move to Austin after all the orange blood. So, yeah.
What do you think? I mean, we're going to wrap up, but this also shakes up the recruiting landscape. Bar none, too. I just...
Well, again, you could be, and this was happening all the time. All the way down the road, the kid's grandmother loves you, everybody loves you. This is where I want you to go. And then, Nick Saban loses the kid to Georgia. And then he's like, all right, well, who's the next best defensive end? Or who's the next defensive end we can get? And they're like, oh, where is he committed? Oh, he's committed to Florida. All right, well, let's call him. and be like, hey, George, this is Nick Saban. You know me.
You might have heard of me.
Hey, I know that you're committed to Florida and all that, and that's a fine institution. They do things pretty good there. But I was wondering if you would like to come and visit Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and look at like the shiniest trophies you've ever seen in your life, and play for me, and probably be a first-round draft pick in the NFL, or you can go and you'll get your free pair of jorts, and then you might be a first-round draft pick. But I can tell you, hold on. Oh, hey, oh man, that's hilarious. Devontae Smith just popped in here and said hello. I didn't even know he was coming in today. Yeah. What do you know about that? He's the first wide receiver to win the Heisman since 1991. I did that. Anyhow, just call me back when you want to see me. All right, bye.
Anyway, brother, your Camaro still runs on gas up here too.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's over. Like that thing is going to affect it, because it wasn't just that he could just go and go, these 20. It was the last 5, right? It was the last 5 that he went to the rivals. Like, oh, you want to go to LSU? I wanted LSU. I had a good time there. Great food in Southern Louisiana.
They tell you about the championship that I won?
Yeah, I won there. I won 1 there. I won 6 here. And I don't know how good you are in math, but I know that Sesame Street taught me that 6 is more than 1. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Why don't you come to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and not go there? And you'll have way more fun here, and you'll be a first-round NFL draft pick. And then that whole thing, oh hey, and here's the deal: even if the draftniks put you down the list and you're in the second, you would be a 4th-round pick if you went to Boston College, but you'll be a 2nd-round pick if you go here, because people are well, he played for Nick Saban.
How many snaps did he play? 10? 2nd-round grade.
Yeah, exactly. He just couldn't get on the field because of all the 9 first-rounders in front of him.
Yep.
That's just how it works. All right, so that's gonna do it. For us, thanks to Royden, thanks to Garrett. We've got a very diverse show today. We got Cody Bradford from the world champion Rangers.
Yay! I like Cody. I've interviewed him.
Yeah, I only wanted to say that in front of you as an Astros fan.
Oh man!
To make you take your medicine. We have Manny Navarro from The Athletic talking about Miami finally getting their quarterback and getting their first choice in Cam Ward. So that was
surprising. We didn't talk about that.
It was surprising, and it is you've got to feel good if you're a Miami fan, because there was a time where you're well, who's it going to be? And
no one?
This is everyone keeps coming here and taking a visit and taking a picture with their mom and dad on the beach and then going back to wherever they are and going somewhere else. So we also have Todd Archer from ESPN talking about the Cowboys collapse, and then John McClain on the NFL playoffs. So a very diverse show today. Diverse show of mostly white guests and Manny Navarro.
I was going to say, this is the first time John McClain's been called diverse in his entire life.
Yeah. And Manny Navarro, who's a lovely Cuban man. Anyway, we're going to be back in an hour. This is 365 Sports on this is 360. You know what? Let's just end the show. 365
Bye.
Sports. Bye.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've